everybody. That's loud. So welcome. I'd like to start out by saying how proud I am to be here speaking today, especially given the company that I have with my fellow speakers on this topic. So my name is Kelle Veverka, and I'm a program manager with Broadcom Mainframe Education. Broadcom Mainframe Software Division, alongside several other sponsoring companies, is part of the initiative of diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging called Making Our Strong Community Stronger. I'd like to take a moment to introduce one of the team's project managers, Sharra Owens-Schwartz, Vice President, Inclusion, Diversity, and Equity at Rocket Software. And she will be hearing from her shortly here. So the mission of this initiative is to create and promote conversation and education around diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging that leads to greater diversity in our mainframe community. Broadcom employees have bravely shared their stories across their personal experiences that have shaped their perceptions of inclusion and their journeys of neurodiversion, neurodiversity. So as a woman, a Latina, a member of the LGBT community, this initiative is something that impacts me directly and is close to my heart. Listening to Sharra speak in the webinar, How Personal Experiences Shape Corporate Inclusion, about how her family prepared her, supported her, gave her strength to navigate the world successfully, it made me start thinking about what my experiences have been. So I grew up in a neighborhood in the south side of Chicago that was rife with poverty and conflict. And my family was fiercely protective and abundantly loving. But their message to me was not about how to be successful outside that neighborhood or outside our culture. Mine was a family of traditional Mexican values that was about women staying home and raising the children, and that the men were the breadwinners, they were to be served and obeyed. So I remember one time complaining to my mother about all the plethora of chores that I had on my list while my brother remained chore-free. And she told me, Kelly, your brother is gonna work for the rest of his life. She's like, you'll get married, stay home, and raise kids. So when I was older, I know that my mom and my aunts were aghast when I would not serve my husband plates of food at family events. Never mind the reactions that I would get if he actually served me a plate of food. So this was their vision for me, one that was defined by our traditions and culture. And while I did not accept that for myself, and I fought all my life to rise above that expectation, it's also the experience that informed the earliest days of my career. It made for a difficult road, blazing a trail for my future, while battling the ingrained perceptions of my worth, my value, and my place in this world. And it's true that there's a lot of time spent having to be the best at something just to be considered good enough. But here I am, and even though it's an ongoing journey, I'm happy where I am right now. I do not regret spending my 20 plus years of my career with a company that has invested in me professionally and especially invested in me as a leader. And it's a pleasure to be part of a company that prioritizes its people and invests in initiatives such as this one. So whether we come from a background that supported us rising above where we are, or we come from a background that ingrained the status quo, it's these discussions and the education and awareness that comes from these discussions that may ease the way for those who come after us, those that maybe didn't have the strength or the support or family behind them, or those who may not have been able to fight for a change in the status quo. So I hope you all will take the time to learn more about this amazing initiative through its associated LinkedIn group, listening to the replays of the webinars, or even signing up for the mailing list. If you have any specific questions or comments, there are representatives of the initiative here who'd be happy to help. And with that, I'll turn it over to our next speaker. Thank you.
Okay, make sure you guys can hear me okay? Excellent. So did you know that in the right environment, autistic people are 140% more productive than their neurotypical peers? And neurodivergent employees are found to be 30% more productive overall. People who are neurodivergent, autism, ADHD, anxiety, anxiety, and other cognitive-based differences are known to be a huge asset in the workforce, particularly in tech. Together, we contribute to a more resilient and diverse workforce, which results in higher creativity, better innovation, higher employee satisfaction, better engagement, more retention, all the things that we need as we walk into this age of quiet quitting and the great resignation, not to mention the known difficulty that we already have with positions that are available but not filled. So I like to think of it like biodiversity. A habitat is so much stronger when it's diverse. Diversity of genetics, species, and ecosystems are all healthier when they're varied. The workplace is no different. Diversity of thought, diversity of race, gender, ethnicity, diversity of experience, these all make for a stronger and more resilient workforce. Diversity has incredible people outcomes as well. Environments are more inclusive and accepting. Individuals are seen for their strengths, which means they're comfortable being themselves, and they're more likely to stay in the workforce for longer. The neurodivergent talent pool is a hugely, hugely untapped resource in today's economy. An estimated 30 to 40% of people overall are thought to be neurodivergent. Estimated. There's probably more than that. And of those, 85% of people with autism are unemployed. And 30 to 40% of people who are neurodivergent are unemployed. We're missing out on so much. People who are neurodivergent are categorically underemployed. They miss promotions, and they face other workplace challenges. In fact, a report from London showed that 40% of neurodivergent tech workers wouldn't talk about their status. They kept it quiet. I imagine that our numbers in the United States would probably reflect this as well. My name is Cynthia Coupé. I am a speech-language pathologist by training and a neurodiversity educator by choice. I have both professional and lived experience with neurodiversity. I'm neurodivergent. My daughter is neurodivergent. My mother is neurodivergent. I've worked in this field for over 20 years. I'm fascinated by the DEI world and the fact that inclusion of people with cognitive-based differences has been so late in coming to the table. But I get it. We blend in. Or maybe we stick out, but in a way that doesn't seem disabled, because we're not disabled. Our brain patterns information differently, but that in no way makes us disabled, just different. Your industry needs a neurodiverse talent pool. And by neurodiverse, I mean people that are neurotypical and neurodivergent. Together, that makes neurodiversity. Just like fingerprints, there's no two brains that are alike. And when we put neurodivergent brains together with neurotypical brains, you have magic. You have strong, healthy workplace ecosystem. And at what point do we look at the web of differences anyway and say, oh, you're neurodivergent, you're neurotypical? Or maybe we can just take a look at the whole spectrum and say, we're all different. We all have neuro-unique ways of looking at things. And boy, do we need that difference in today's world. The tech industry is no different. Your neuro-unique minds, they're excellent performers when they're in the right job. And we can help them get there. As an industry, you guys hold that power right here and right now. The support is here, and so is the workforce. When in the right job placement, neurodivergent minds are creative, think outside the box, have high levels of curiosity and focus, and bring novel ideas to the team. We're fast learners, loyal, curious, tenacious, and honest. Some of our minds are uniquely structured for a deep singular focus. Some are highly visual learners, maybe excel at analysis, pay attention to detail, or have excellent memories. A neurodiverse workforce is naturally more resilient and have strengths because they are layered, gaps are filled, and the network has a tighter web. I'm speaking to a room full of technology professionals. And what do you guys do? You shape our future. You're literally responsible for creating processes that will be in place for society going forward for decades to come. From my understanding, technology reflects the values of its creators. And wouldn't that mean that you'd build better technology if you have more diverse teams? So what's the problem? Well, it's multifaceted. For one, diversity has been focused primarily on gender and race. Neurodiversity is a little late in coming to the table. For two, our workplace structures have been built on neurotypical minds. For three, our unique minds mean that there's no one right way to include us in your workforce. This means that we get to get creative when it comes to restructuring the system. And the cool thing is, it's totally possible. The world has been waiting for this for a long time, and the structures are actually here to help us develop a neuro-unique workforce with conscious intention. Not one where 40% of you are not comfortable speaking about your neurodiverse needs, but one where we're all free to speak about how our mind works and how that is an asset to the team. Sometimes this diversity is called polyperspective, which simply means multiple perspectives and points of view. This is what's needed in today's world, and we have it right here, right now, in this very room. So what are we going to do going forward, and how do we do it? I have some simple guidelines, some of which are already starting to happen in the mainframe world. Actively recruit neurodivergent workers. There are already companies in place that will help you do this and that will work with you to ensure your neurodivergent team is being used to their full potential. Include neurodiversity in your DEI policies, just like you've done for gender and race. Restructure how you think about the corporate ladder. Rather than standard roles, look at job tailoring, where you tailor the job to fit the person. So instead of thinking of the corporate ladder, it's more like a corporate tree. Encourage workplace support like lean-in circles, regular think tanks with neurotypical and neurodivergent professionals, workplace policies that reflect neurodivergent needs, and continue to have panels that discuss these things. Be transparent in your efforts, your struggles, and your successes. And while you're doing this, include neurodivergent people in all of these practices along the way. Recruit the talent that will help you restructure the workplace to best suit the needs of all of the employees. Because really, together, we're faster, stronger, and better, and more brilliant than any of us are alone. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, Cynthia. Talk that it really, I think you said 30 to 40% are neurodivergent. And in my talk earlier, I talked about language. And if 30 to 40% of the population that's documented is neurodivergent, should we interrogate this language that we're using about divergent? So thank you for that. And Kelly, thank you for that powerful story and sharing your journey with us. We are now going to change it up a little bit. Byron Smith is going to join me. We're going to do a fireside chat. He has a really unique story and powerful story that we'd love to share with you, and followed by a Q&A. So why don't we grab chairs and have a conversation.
Okay. You okay? Mic check, can everyone hear me? Okay, there we go.
So I guess I should introduce myself again. My name is Sharra Owens-Schwartz, and I lead our global diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives at Rocket Software. And Byron, would you like to introduce yourself?
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Byron Smith. I'm the Vice President of Mainframe Security at M&T Bank, and I'm based out of Baltimore. It's a pleasure to be here.
All right, let's get started. So Byron, you have a really unique story about first getting into the mainframe industry, and then you're a young man, you're a vice president. Can you share with us what your story is and sort of what your journey has looked like?
So my story started at University of Maryland Eastern Shore, which is my alma mater, which is a small HBCU based out of Maryland. And at the time, there was a UMES and IBM academic initiative where I'm a product of that. And I wanted to do something different. I went to the program and I said to the IBMer at the time, I said, hey, what can I do to join this program? Because I was not your average 3.0 student. I just wasn't. There were some challenges that I had early on that I was able to progress over time with the help of the IBM academic initiative by doing something that a lot of people didn't get the opportunity to do. And because the mainframe industry is so vast and there's so many opportunities, the one thing that struck my eye on it was it's different. And mainframe, to me, what I found out was it is the backbone of society. So when I realized that the mainframe was running in so many different places, I realized that, hey, this is something different. I have to think differently, but I also have to maneuver differently. So when it comes to my journey and background on getting into the mainframe, starting at IBM, going through Visa, going through ADP, and now I'm at M&T, my journey has always been focused around, in my opinion, was my hunger and my motive. And because I had that motive and that hunger, I never really, and this might sound strange to some people, but I never really cared about diversity, inclusion, belonging. Never really cared, because I knew the one thing that I learned from my mom, and it goes to the point of respecting others. Regardless of who I am, what I look like, I respect you when we meet, regardless, because we have a shared interest. We're at this conference, we're at this school, etc. We're at this job. So again, when it comes to diversity, I don't really care about it because I am diverse. I treat you with respect regardless of your ethnicity, background, etc. So my journey started from school with that one thought of be yourself, respect others, and that has carried me to get to this position.
So that's really interesting perspective, right, that you're sharing. And so why is diversity important? And what is it? What is diversity? You said you didn't really think about diversity, equity, inclusion. When you hear diversity, what does that mean to you? And why is it important in the workforce?
So to me, diversity is just like its definition. It's just a variety. It means a variety. So when you sit back and think, why is diversity important to me? Why is it important in the workplace? Because again, everyone in this room knows this. We are an organization, and I look at things differently. So I want people to understand I look at things differently. So when I say we're an organization, meaning United States, the world, for example, the United Nations, that is a consistent of diversity. So when you look at things, diversity to me is a variety of perspectives. It's important and critical in the workplace because, again, I'm just joining, I'm younger. You have a background, I have a background, let's get to know each other. And a good story to top this off would be my best friend, unfortunately, was someone that I met in Singapore. Never met her in person, it was a woman. So I had to learn how to adapt over and over again every single time I meet someone, every time I went to a different job, every time I went to different conferences. I had to always adapt and keep at the forefront of my mind that I am diverse. I'm gonna respect you when I meet you. I could care less about your background. I didn't ask about that. We're talking about a technology. We're talking about something that's gonna help our companies that we're working for. So for me, if we're in a work environment, and this goes to Cynthia's point, if we're in an environment where we both have a shared reality of, hey, you wanna make sure the company is doing the best practices, I wanna make sure the company is safe. Again, our diversity should not be a problem where we can't work together. And I think a lot of people don't look at that. If we focus on actually our job and our passion, our motive, diversity shouldn't be at the forefront. Oh, I can't work with you because of X, Y, and Z. No. Diversity, we are diverse. In technology, we are diverse. So.
Thank you for that perspective. So, Byron, I know a little bit about your story, and you're a Black male in the mainframe space, a vice president, and that is not necessarily typical in our space. And so, for those who don't know your story and don't know what was critical for you to get here, can you talk about some of the support, some of the people that were in your life? I know I talk a lot about women, people of color in particular, who are looking to sort of go up that corporate ladder, and pieces that are missing are that sponsorship piece, that mentoring and particularly sponsorship. So can you talk a little bit about what was critical in your career for you to even have access as you progressed your career?
Great question. The most critical thing to me in my journey, believe it or not, is diversity. And I say that because the first person who believed in me and helped me get to where I am today was my baseball coach in college, who was Caucasian. He helped me get into college. And then from there, I started meeting people with different backgrounds. So as my journey through the IBMs, through the ADP visa, and even out at M&T, I've always worked with someone and always had a sponsor or mentor. For example, currently the general manager at IBM is one of my mentors. I also have a mentor, kind of like my colleagues from college. I have a board of directors that I call them every day where I want to talk about certain things. So my sponsorship from my mentors has played a tremendous part, and they were not of the same descent as me. And I think a lot of people look at it as, oh, he's just another Black guy, he has a few Black people helping. No, it was a community. I've had Black guys, I've had, different people helping me with different backgrounds, regardless of their ethnicity. And the one thing that I asked IBM, and I'll never forget it, his name is Mikey Brown. I said, Mikey, why did IBM choose me? I did not have the grades, I don't know the mainframe as much as I want. Why did you guys choose me? And he looked at me in my face and said, Byron, we like you because you're being yourself. You're respecting others, you're asking general great questions, and you're getting to know people. And he kind of rubbed it in and said, you're a DJ. This is what DJ is supposed to do. You're supposed to be diverse. So because of that, I took a step back and said, wait a minute, that is exactly who I am. So I look at my journey and say, you know what? I can't sit here and talk about what does diversity mean, what does it mean to me, et cetera, because I am diverse. Diversity has always been there with me, and it's because of IBM, organizations like IBM and ADP that gave me an opportunity to show that, yes, I'm from a small HBCU, yes, I'm from Baltimore City, I'm the oldest, I'm a first generation college student, so there's a lot of pressure. But because they gave me the opportunity to be myself, and I'm continuing to be myself over and over, again, diversity to me, I am diversity because I respect others, and others respect me because I'm genuinely being myself, and I'm not over or underselling. So mentoring has played a critical part in my journey, and without mentoring, and especially without diversity, I would not be here today.
Really excellent point. I want to double back. Earlier, I talked about access and opportunity, and you talked about being from HBCU, which is a historically Black college or university. And I talked about tapping into different markets where you hadn't before to access talent. And you're a great example of that. You went to a HBCU. And so you talk about not having the grades, right? You talk about not being maybe a traditional person that someone would reach out to or believe in. And that's a conversation that I have. It's about looking at people's potential. And what we know, and what has been studied, is oftentimes men in particular, white men in particular,
are often promoted or hired based on potential. Women are often promoted or hired because of their demonstrated ability to do particular things, right? And so maybe someone took a chance on you. You were not traditional, and that's not typical of Black men in America's career trajectory. And so what do you have to say about that? What is your belief about that, being a non-traditional candidate for these positions and for hiring managers to take a risk or an investment, I should say?
So I would say, my belief is, and this goes to something Kelly mentioned, I was a part of the making our community stronger with Dr. Chance and a few others where we spoke on diversity and things of nature. So I'll say, my philosophy is this: hire based off of character and not skills. Skills can be taught, but character cannot. Anyone can teach me anything from a skill perspective. But as far as my character and my motive, I have to do that. So what I want hiring managers, my fellow colleagues, everyone to look within yourself. Are you hiring this person based off of their resume, or are you hiring them based off the ability that they can have a conversation with you? Can they be in the room full of people and advocate for your company? So I really want people to look at hiring, but hire them based off of their character and not their skills. Any skill can be taught, but not your character. And that plays a very critical role in diversity. Because when you start looking at people's characters, that's where the diversity lanes come in. Okay, well, this person went to a HBCU. Oh, they're in a fraternity. Oh, they're in a sorority. Oh, they, et cetera, et cetera. Those type of soft skills are very needed in today's modernization, because we're not 50 years ago. Technology will continue to grow. If we do not take a step back and say, you know what, diversity, this is who we are, we're going to try to solve this complex problem overnight, it can't. Diversity is going to take time. But just know, if you start looking within yourself and hire based on the character and not the skills, you'll be good. It's similar to my fraternity brother's quote. I quote Dr. Martin Luther King. It's, don't judge me by the character of my skin. Judge me by the content of my character. Similar thing. Hire me based on my character and not my skills. Anyone can teach me how to draw or anything, but you can't teach me how to stand up in the room, speak to someone. You can't expect me to travel and represent your company if you don't have that type of mindset. So again, I get a little passionate about it, because I really want people, especially hiring managers, I really want people to start looking at character and not their skills. Forget the skills. Let's look at the character, content of the person.
That's powerful. And we've been doing it in Mainframe. We've been doing it across industries, right? And Mainframe for a long time had we're expanding, we're becoming more diverse. And again, I will iterate, we have been hiring and promoting men forever based on potential, right? Let's open up that aperture and start evaluating others on that criteria. So I don't even know how much time we have, but I would like to open it up for questions. Is there any do you have any final thoughts before we open it up for questions?
I guess I would say, and it's something I've been thinking about recently as preparing for this session. I would say, when you look at technology in general is diverse by design. Look at all the technical companies working together. This one company, small company working with this big company, that's diversity. So again, diversity by definition is variety, okay? When you think about technology, think about a cell phone, think about a mainframe. Several different components, technical components working together with different perspectives. Same thing. So to me, I started thinking, well, technology is diverse by design. It's inclusion and belonging, I think we need to focus on further, and not just diversity. It's inclusion and belonging that we need to start looking into more, because technology is diverse by design. So that's my last piece on that.
creating those inclusive environments where people can find belonging, the diversity comes.
Correct.
It can, the environment can sustain it.
Correct.
Do we have any questions? Yes,
Here's
Cynthia.
I think it's on.
Okay, thank you. I really appreciate that, actually. Like, I feel like the kind of diversity that I'm talking about, so much of that was reflected. And so, but I'm going to throw a little monkey wrench in there.
Okay.
Because the content of character is what's misjudged a lot of times for people that are neurodivergent, right? So it's like we're looking at DEI, but there's so many different lenses that we get to look at it through. And I think that that's something that's been really confused a lot of times, because what I see a lot of times is people that are neurodivergent, maybe they miss promotions or they get fired because maybe it looks like they're standoffish or they're not really, being curious in the way that you are naturally curious, but internally the person might be. So I feel like my invitation, for managers and hiring practices in DEI is really like, stop a label. Notice if you're judging somebody and then get curious about it instead, right? And I think I think that principle applies to all diversity as well. But yeah, so I just wanted to throw that in there.
No, thank you.
Yeah.
I appreciate that, sir.
Absolutely. Thank you, Cynthia. It's critical that we interrupt these biases, right? When we are evaluating people, look at introvert versus extroverts. Are extroverts being rewarded more? Are we inviting introverts into conversations? If there are going to be big decisions made, questions asked, right? Perhaps we need to give the questions ahead of time so people can think about it. Because people can't be spontaneous doesn't mean that they're not engaged or they don't have meaningful things to say, when in fact, they often have very insightful and meaningful things to say. So great point, thank you. Any other questions? Yes.
Here you go.
So thank you. This was a great panel. Just wondering, so you mentioned we should look at people's character, not skills, when hiring, but how do you do that? Because when hiring people, generally the interaction is very short. Just there are interviews, and then when a candidate coming to interview, actually there are a lot of steps eliminating the candidates already, like ATS, like a lot of tests and everything. So I'm just wondering, like, how can companies really measure or like observe the character of the person in a better way than the skills?
Great way to explain that. The great way to explain that would be, to me, I call them core ethic values: honesty, integrity. Do I trust you? Do we have a vibe, in a sense? Can we have a conversation? So these are soft skills that I was able to leverage because I was a DJ. In college, I started DJing to help me get extra money. And because being a DJ, you have to control body language. You have to control a diverse set of people that you don't know. So again, to me, when it comes to judging the content of a character, look at the core ethic values. Are you holding yourself accountable? Are you saying and doing the exact same thing? Do you have that honesty? Can I trust you? Which is a very critical one that a lot of people need to understand. Can I trust you to come and work at this organization and help us get to where we're going, instead of coming in, hey, well, I'm from this background, I'm gay, I need to be with the gay people. No, don't do that. Don't put a label on it, just like Cynthia said. Again, it's the core ethic values that I believe that we need to focus on more of. So when I say judging based off the content of your character, those are the core ethic values that I'm referring to. It's the simple everyday life stuff that we normally exemplify to each other. So that's what I mean by judge based off the content of their character and not just the skills. You can't teach me to be honest. That should be within myself. And if they're not going to be honest, then why should we hire you? You can be the best programmer in the world, but why should we even hire you if you can't even hold a conversation or be honest with us? So that's what I mean by that. Great question, by the way. Thank you.
I'll expand on that a little bit, and then I'll get to you. So what I've been saying is a little different, but absolutely, you want honesty, you want integrity in folks. The point that I have been stressing is that potential piece, right? And the way to evaluate that is in your conversations, look for initiative that perhaps they've taken in the past and have them communicate that to you. And look for things that are transferable, right? Because passion, hunger, ambition, and ambition it's loaded with connotation, but in a good way, right? Am I eager to learn, or do I show up like I know it all, you really can't teach me much? But those are, I would say, things to look for in terms of potential, even if the person hasn't demonstrated that particular thing that you're looking for. Things to keep an eye out.
Yeah, good question. You had a question?
I want to say something from my point of view. 10 years we had the gender problem in Germany, and now I would say, now I would think more, am I hired in this other company because by qualification or because of gender topics? Therefore, companies have to hire women, and now you are thinking every time, do they see any potential in myself, or do they want to have me because of gendering? Therefore,
Yes.
it is a little bit converted, and when I have got also some experience at IBM and I want to expand the diversity topic, I had somebody in my team who said, you cannot trust open source contributors, and we are at the Open Mainframe Summit now, and therefore I would say we should expand this topic, because there are companies and employees inside of some companies who are saying open source contributors, keep them away. Therefore, I would expand this diversity topic, especially at the Open Mainframes Summit, with open source contributor diversity additionally.
Yes, thank you for that comment and question. And to make sure I have the question correct, is there's a questioning around gender and hiring. Am I being hired for my potential, or are we focusing on am I being hired because I'm a woman? And I focused on this earlier a little bit in the talk earlier, and how damaging this is that we are here now, right? Because we talk about women, we talk about people of color, we talk about people with disabilities, right? As people who are, we don't even have really the language around people who are neurodivergent, right? We're not even really having that conversation out loud, right? And that's why it's damaging to talk about people as diverse. Anyone who is not, and I'll say it again, a white male, cisgendered, heterosexual, able-bodied, neurotypical, anyone who is not that is diverse. And we are labeling people, and it is damaging for the individual, and it is damaging for the organization because of how loaded, right, those connotations are. So, great question. We're all grappling with this. I agree, we need to have these conversations. We need to be open about these conversations and really dismantle how we use this language. And I challenge the audience to stop using diverse when we're talking about an individual. Not this person is a diverse hire, or a diverse candidate. So yes, let's continue this conversation. Cynthia, I think that. Yeah.
Byron, did you have anything to
No.
say about that?
That was perfect. No.
Okay.
Perfect.
I addressed this a little bit in my keynote tomorrow, but one way kind of to get around this is with universal design. So universal design is where we set up the environment so that everybody can succeed equally. It doesn't matter. A really common example is like a wheelchair ramp. So everybody can use that, right? You're not singling out the person that's in the wheelchair.
Yeah.
So there's practices that can go in place like that in workforces too, and I think that can help for all of the diversity, right? It's just like an environment where everybody can succeed equally without question.
Yes.
That's kind of what we're going for.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Excellent.
Hi, yes, my name is Tori. I work for PNC. I wanted to kind of just point out the question that you had about how do you establish the character of a person when you only maybe have an hour or two to speak with them. And that's one thing that our team, as we go through a lot of people retiring and trying to get in new people, trying to help maintain our group cohesiveness, because I love my group and I love the people I work with, and just trying to keep that as you bring in new personalities and new types of people. We have long conversations with the people coming in. Like, it's not just an hour. There's sometimes where the entire team will get together to talk with that person for an hour and a half or longer. And the topics of conversation really don't have anything to do with what projects have you done, what conversions have you done, what code languages do you know. It has to do with what are the things you like to do? What are the things you don't like to do? What are some of the best jobs you've had, the worst? And by asking questions like that, you start learning a little bit more how that person feels, how they think, what kind of a person they are, and that really kind of establishes better their character rather than just their competencies. I just wanted to bring that up.
Yeah.
That's a great point. That was a great point. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
I like
Thank
that.
you.
Yeah.
Thank you for offering that.
So I think, to add to that one, it's interpersonal skills that you want to look for. Again, skills can be taught, but interpersonal, are you a people person? Can we put you in a room to adapt? Can you, represent for the company while you're somewhere else? So again, interpersonal skills, a lot of people, in my opinion, when it comes to hiring, we tend to want to check a box. Don't try to check a box. Anyone can check a box, but can that same person you're checking the box be a representative for your company? And it's a lot of things going on nowadays in the industry in general where people are looking at diversity, as a checkbox. No, we don't check the diversity box. Don't do that. Just don't do that, Because again, when you look at technology is one of the areas, even banking, but stick to technology for now. Technology is a global entity. From a global perspective, you have people from different backgrounds automatically have to work together. There's people in India, there's people in London, there's people in Asia, there's people in America. So again, technology is diverse by design. So again, if we stop looking at some of the stuff we looked at 50 years ago and kind of stay where we are now and moving forward, that's going to help not only us as a society, but it's going to help with the technology advances that we have forthcoming. So,
I'd like to just expand on that because when we're talking about, and we probably have to wrap up after this if there are no pressing questions, to just expand on that a little bit, Byron. Depending upon the role, right? And yes, if someone needs to go out and represent the company, that is one thing. But we know that everyone, in terms of interpersonal, it varies, right? In terms of people's capacity, even. I might be a person who can come into this room and have a conversation with anyone. And for someone else, it might be very terrifying. And that is okay, right? And so for us not to also be locked into, I have a particular person, think about what the role requires, and then have those sort of offline kind of conversations outside of sort of the actual skill level. Thinking about diversity always, right? We don't, again, I was talking about
are we rewarding extroverted people? And depending upon the role, right? You may have to be extroverted. And in my role, I have to talk to people. that is what I do. I talk to people all the time, so it is critical that I'm able to be empathetic, to be expansive, to be flexible in how I think, and to be thoughtful in how I communicate. Any other burning questions? My goodness, thank you so much for having this conversation with us today. It was so rich. I'm walking away with so much.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you, Byron.
No, thank you. This is
Thank you
pretty
for sharing
awesome.
your
Thank you,
story.
everyone. Yep.